Now to an exclusive story for you. A Russian woman tells Fox News she thinks she was manipulated by outside forces in order to entrap Donald Trump advisor Michael Flynn. Fox chief intelligence correspondent Catherine Herridge reports exclusively for the show on this story.
I'm not a Russian spy, and I have never worked for the Russian government. I believe that General Flynn was targeted, and I was used to do that.
The allegations center on the 2014 seminar and dinner at England's University of Cambridge. At the time, General Mike Flynn ran military intelligence for President Obama. Vakova spoke to Fox News via Skype.
General Flynn was the guest of honor. I sat on the opposite side of the table to Flynn.
Were you alone with General Flynn before, during, or after the dinner?
I have never been alone with General Flynn.
According to a flyer, the Cambridge events were organized with the support of American Stefan Halper, who was later identified by media outlets as a professor who reportedly assisted the FBI's Russia probe. In December 2015, as a private citizen, Flynn was paid $45,000 to speak at a Russia Today event in Moscow, where he shared a table with President Vladimir Putin.
Did you ever discuss traveling to Moscow with General Flynn after the dinner?
There was absolutely no discussion of going to Moscow with General Flynn.
In February 2016, as Flynn's role in the Trump campaign became public, out of the blue, Vakova says she was invited to a private dinner with Halper.
It was very, very unusual to me. I was an obnoxious academic who absolutely hated all Russians.
During the 2016 campaign, Halper also contacted Trump campaign aides. Halper has refused requests for comment about his government work. In 2017, as Flynn was forced out as national security advisor over lying about contact with the Russian ambassador, Vakova says 3 American media outlets contacted her over a 4-day period, alleging suspicious contact with Flynn in 2014.
Was it a coincidence, or do you think it was coordinated?
I think there's a high chance that it was coordinated, and I believe it needs to be properly investigated.
Vakova says she is, quote, collateral damage in the Russia probe, and she is speaking out to clear her name and to get answers about American Stefan Halper, specifically whether she was used to target or smear General Flynn. Tucker.
Well, that's an amazing story. I think we need to know much more about Stefan Halper.
We'll stay on it.
I hope you will. Thank you. Catherine Herridge, as always.
The hypocrisy of Washington, D.C. on full display tonight as 17 House Democrats, Dems that once voted against releasing the Starr report back in 1998, announced they're all for releasing the Mueller report today. Amazing what a couple decades in a different political party in office will do, right? So these 17 Dems, there they are. We've done some research. All these Dems that are still serving today. In that list, we have a real cast of political characters. And we have Jerry Nadler, Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters. All of them once felt very passionately against the release of a special prosecutor's report. But what do you know now? Now they are all for it, of course. What do you know? Politics, right? Now, on the one hand, I guess this is what's to be expected after 21 years and 10 elections. They know how to play the game. Politicians are politicians. But tonight, it's not just these politicians that are sharpening their knives. No, not just the politicians. You get the New York Times, perhaps, I don't know, embarrassed that its reporters were so vehemently on the side of the Democrats, on the side of Hillary Clinton. New York Times tonight insisting Mueller's team members think the AG went soft on Trump and that the information they provided is actually more damning than Barr concluded in his synopsis. And you got commentators on other networks like MSNBC trying to take that a step further, saying the report included evidence of collusion with the Russians. Where are they getting this stuff, right? Because Mueller did not conclude that. They may be concluding it. Mueller didn't. It's a theme that the Washington Post is peddling as well. You know, pardon me, last time I checked, Mueller didn't find collusion in the AG. Mr. Barr didn't consider the report a reason to bring collusion charges. So no collusion. And yet so-called lawmakers like Adam Schiff and so-called journalists like those in the mainstream media still want to believe the president is Manchurian candidate from Russia. Get over it, guys. You need to move on. The Democrats actually need to figure out sooner or later that if they keep digging in their heels here on this one, it's only going to make their own situation worse. And here's why. Someone Someone had to get the ball rolling on all of this. Think about it. Someone fed all that scandalous gossip on the initial so-called dirty dossier to the ex-British spy, Christopher Steele, and Fusion GPS. Steele was hired by Clinton's team to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. And then someone at Fusion GPS was feeding the info to the FBI, who then decided it made sense to illegally spy on Americans that happen to be working for a political campaign. I mean, this is messed up, right? It's all messed up. And the New York Times can try and save its story by insisting it has sources that expected more. I'm assuming Adam Schiff might have been in that group of sources. But what Mueller concluded actually meant no collusion charges. And the Attorney General of the United States didn't see any reason to bring any. My gosh, what more? What more do they need? What more do they want?
There are reports tonight that some members of the special counsel team investigating alleged Russian collusion during the 2016 election may feel that the Attorney General is not adequately portraying the results of that investigation and the report. The administration is pushing back hard on anonymously sourced stories. This comes as Republican lawmakers are looking into the ethics of the investigation itself. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has details tonight.
The Justice Department issued a rare public statement taking issue with media accounts that the Mueller report contains summaries that were releasable. Quote, every page of the confidential report provided to Attorney General Barr on March 22, 2019 was marked may contain material protected under a law that protects confidential grand jury information and therefore could not be publicly released. The New York Times first reported some special counsel investigators told associates that their findings are far more negative than Barr's 4-page summary released last month. A senior Democrat said it backs up his efforts to see the full report and secure Mueller's testimony.
There's some dissatisfaction over how accurately Barr represented the report, but again, the answer is, let's see it.
On Twitter, the president knocked the story, writing, the New York Times had no legitimate sources, which would be totally illegal concerning the Mueller report. In fact, they probably had no sources at all. Despite the president's tough talk about what he calls a witch hunt, one of the president's former attorneys told a podcast the president was nothing but cooperative in the Mueller investigation.
All this, what I call mainstream knee-jerk theories, these wild theories, he was really trying to get rid of Bob. That was nonsense.
Separately, these letters obtained by Fox News show Republican Senators Grassley and Graham alerted Barr last month that congressional investigators uncovered evidence of potential improper political influence, misconduct, and mismanagement in the Russia probes. Fox News understands the senators wanted Barr to have the information before he reviewed Mueller's findings, after congressional investigators alleged special counsel prosecutors used selective quotes in court filings to create the most negative interpretation possible. This 2017 letter shows Grassley directly warned Mueller, citing emails from Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos, among others, about traveling to Russia during the presidential race. Quote, in the full context, the emails in question actually show that the Trump campaign wanted someone low-level to decline these types of invitations.
On the Mueller report's delivery to Congress, there is significant time pressure. At the end of next week, both the House and Senate go on recess. Sources tell Fox News Justice Department officials hope to complete their review in coming days, meeting the Attorney General's goal of mid-April. Brett.
Catherine, thank you.
Collusion? Really? Seriously? So Robert Mueller comes forward with no collusion, and yet Mr. Adam Schiff has evidence of something else entirely? It's time for Congressman Schiff to show us that evidence, if he has it, put up or bow out, instead of going on television night after night to cast aspersions on the president without any kind of proof. I don't see a problem with showing us what you have, Congressman, the American public, that so-called evidence that you're bragging about, especially when Adam Schiff's fellow Democrat, Jerry Nadler, is calling for the entire Mueller report to be released. Come forward, right? I'll tell you, it's the height of selfishness. Schiff cares not for the well-being of his country, but rather his own political prospects and the political prospects of his party, for that matter. You know, I'd like if, maybe just for once, politicians could look out for the nation instead of themselves. Adam Schiff says there's, quote, evidence in there, then let's see it, sir. For goodness sakes, he hasn't even read the darn report. What kind of evidence is he citing then? Is this the same evidence that John Brennan was citing, the man who now admits he might have gotten some bad information, as he phrases it? Stop it. Just stop it, right, with the politics, please. If Adam Schiff and the others could get their heads out of there, well, you know what, for 3 seconds, then they might actually realize that there is some meaningful, positive reform that could be happening right now for our country and the hundreds of millions of Americans living here in the way of immigration reform, trade reform, and more economic prosperity. People are self-interested. I get it. But I still, perhaps naively, would like to think that if you're a lawmaker on Capitol Hill, you are there because you believe you can make this country, this world, a better place. Political animals like Adam Schiff, I don't believe he is capable of doing so because he's too mired in his own political objectives, his own selfishness. Mr. Schiff, show us that evidence you're bragging about. Put your cards on the table, sir, or resign.